Yes. Sarah, can you hear us all right?
I can. Sorry, my volume was down for a second. Hello.
Hi. We're having a little echo problems. Can you do a test for us, Sarah, just so we can see if we got that fixed?
Yeah, good to see everyone today. Let me know if the echo is okay.
Recording.
Zoom.
It's gonna Sandpoint, Idaho. From a run?
A swim, long bridge swim. My wife and I went over there to do a swim. The first time in 20 some years they had to cancel it due to high winds. So I'll have to go back and do it again.
Okay, you got a shirt?
But I don't, there's the big long bridge.
Yeah.
From
Yeah. It can get pretty, yeah.
miles. So.
Cool.
Hey, there's the kid.
Hey.
Okay. Well, we got everybody here. I'll go ahead. It's 5:20. I will call the meeting to order. So I think they sent it to everybody, but James Sarwo resigned. He moved away. So we have 4 members. Yeah, on the committee right now, and that's further on the agenda, about our needing some appointees. So, so we've got 4 active members right now. Meeting minutes, there were none from last month. So no approval, no minutes to approve. So moving on, standing staff report. I'll turn it over to Mr. Knopke. The floor is yours.
Sure. So our current projects are fees, the non-solar RFPs for Warren and 11th are on order. Those will be installed when we get them. So they haven't given us a lead time, but we'll see how that goes. The RFPs for the crossing of Benton and Stewart, because that's still an MDT urban route, we're going to have to go through and get a design for MDT to review. Most likely those are going to be overhead RFPs because of the multi-lane. And then if that lane ever goes, or that roadway ever goes under a diet, then we can look at, either removing the overheads or putting on traditional RFPs there. And then we have a pair we had to check on if we have an advanced warning flasher for over at Saddle and Bellevue. And I didn't get a report on whether we have that advanced flasher or not. If not, we'll be ordering that, and those will be going in the summer. So those are the 3 RFP projects that are on the horizon. In the city and update, I can
just clear. So we have 3 active RFP projects. So the one on Benton and Stewart is back on.
The one on Benton and Stewart is going to have to go to design because of interaction with MDT.
Okay. And then, so is there going to be public comment available for the one at Benton and Stewart if there's going to be a design?
Just like any other process.
Okay.
We don't have a time frame. We don't have anyone selected or anything on that one yet, so it's still very preliminary.
Yeah, but the other ones at Warren and then Saddle, those are
this
imminent. This
11th and Warren, when we get them and we can get the contractor in to install them, and then Saddle, if we have the advanced warning, getting the contractor in there, put the foundations in there and install. So,
no, that's I just wanted to double check on Benton and Stewart because I've had people ask me about it, and I didn't realize it was back on.
Well,
go. So
it's on our schedule. Where it fits in, I gotta just see. So
okay.
Did you want me to do a city and update, or do you want to wait? I can give the overview of the software, or I can just give an update of where they're at with the software.
I would like to just do a brief update because there's the Sidewalk Summit is on the YouTube channel, and so
okay. So right now, Cidian's still doing some QA QC for some of the sidewalks and ADA ramps. We've tweaked a couple of the behind the screen processes for them to look at the different types of ADA ramps, whether boulevard, curbside, whether they need ramps or blockage protection. We've been finding a few things here and there that we've been notifying them so that they can go in and look why something was shown as non-compliant, and when we went out and measured it. So we're working through those QA QC things. Next week, hopefully towards the end of the week, they plan on having all the missing assets, ADA ramps and sidewalks in as assets, so that we can actually do a corridor and show existing versus missing assets along that. That will help with projects moving forward instead of manually going in there and seeing that we have missing sidewalk, we'll just be able to query that corridor. Any questions on that?
I don't, but I'm gonna interject because I realized I noticed that James resigned, but I didn't do a roll call. So for the record, I will say for, in the room here, have MTAC members, myself, Greg Worth, Kevin Reckoff, Joel Ebert, Lucas Wallace, David Konopke is here. We have Sarah Sando online, Lieutenant Jason Zander online. And then here, members of the public, we have Scott Brasnoff and Tom Chrysler. Did I miss anybody? It's written down, but I skipped right over it.
Should have caught that point.
So the BNSF Centennial, so let's get into that point. So they don't do easements anymore. We were informed of that when we had our meeting with them last week. They do permits now. So we have to switch the process to go into their permitting, which goes through their real estate company. And they don't want easement documents in there, they want design. So we were able to talk to them and get them to understand that, expending city funds for a project that we don't have any assurances that they're going to approve or grant a permit is problematic for the city. And so there was some agreement that we'll get to 30% design and then submit that for their that includes the trail starting at Benton along the old railroad bed, curving over towards the southern edge of the BNSF property over by Barney Park, going along Barney Park, and then continuing basically along that southern edge, tying into the existing trailer over behind Salvation houses over there, and then going to Henderson. That will have a wider area, because I'm not sure what to call it, because we're not asking for easement, it's a permit, so a wider area for that potential raised crossing there with the bridge, and then I'll continue on basically the existing path to tie into the paved trail right there behind the Joslin storage units there, and then that'll continue on out. So that's where we are now. Give me an update. It's still a work in progress.
Should have taken a yes when we got it. As close as you can to get a yes.
Yeah, there's the question on that. So the no easement, more of a permit license type agreement, is there some duration that would be expected for? I mean, is it termed out like 10 or 20 or 30-year type deal?
No, it's a permit that from their perspective, it's easier for us. And in some of the discussion, it will be, because if you remember, the agreement that we got the first time was a construction easement that had to be completed within 2 years. And they submitted that, mid-budget cycle. At that time, when we were looking at steel for the bridge, steel had an 18-month lead time. And by the time we got a designer on board to get something done, it would be very difficult to get a construction project completed, because in that construction agreement from Benton to Joslin had to be completed within that 2 years. There can be a phase. I mean, we can phase it over those 2 years, but it had to be completed. There was no, well, we'll do the bridge on year 3 or whatever. There was no opportunity really to go after grant funds for some of those. It would all have to come out of city coffers. So in that respect, there is more flexibility with this permit versus, because once the permit's issued, you have the permit. And then it's I haven't seen any example language in it, but kind of talking with them, it's our permit until we say we don't want it, or the railroad deems they don't want us there. But there's some pretty, I guess not rigid, but there's some protections for both parties that they just don't say, yeah, we don't want you here. We would have to be doing something that's not compliant with the permit. So I'm hopeful when I see some sample language that it is And I don't have any reason not to, believe them, but they did bring up that BNSF, through BNSF itself, has some grant opportunities, and will help with other grant opportunities. So it's a little bit easier to, we'll have that avenue as well to go through and try to raise some money funds for the trail and the construction. So. Yes. And then policy, the sidewalk variance code amendment, last night was first reading. That basically, instead of having to take all these sidewalk variances to the commission, it goes to the city manager. Kind of streamline the process, but there is a component that if the applicant doesn't agree with or like the answer they get from the city manager, there is an appeal process to the city commission for them to consider it. So then there's just some cleanup or some additional language in the purpose, talking about the intent of the sidewalks for the city, the intent to make it walkable for everyone, including our disabled population, and that the city's preference is boulevard sidewalks. And then the current city code has the city where the variance goes to the commission. As it stands right now, can authorize minor deviations of the placement. So if you have to go around a power pole or whatever, that just falls one level down, and that just goes with a consultation between myself and the city manager on those minor deviations, or whoever's sitting in the director's seat. The other one is renovations to property. Renovations can trigger the sidewalks to be ensured that they're ADA compliant, or installation of sidewalks if they're a major renovation. It's not going to be something for, like, if you're remodeling your kitchen or your bathroom, that's not going to trigger it. But if you're, doubling the size of your house, or remodeling the and all the entire interior and adding something else, or on a commercial property that they're doing something major, then that would trigger the sidewalks in that case. So, any questions?
Can I ask a couple questions? Go ahead. I always thought that was theoretically the case, that renovations would trigger to put in a sidewalk. Is that not always been the case?
We clarified it's in code right now. We just clarified it. We, instead of having it in one section, we pulled it out and made it its own section, so it was very clear.
Okay. So I guess, and the difficulty there is, where do you draw the line and how do you make it fair? I mean, who's deciding that?
It's the way that the code reads, the proposed code is the city staff will make that determination.
With an appeal to the commission, which the commission can appeal. You can appeal if you don't want to have put in a second. What about the other side of it, I guess, is somebody gets a variance, and I, as just a random member of the public, don't think they should put a boulevard there. There's no appeal for the other side of it, is there?
No, but the intent was that these sidewalks will be boulevard, and that not having boulevards will be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
And we may put sidewalk all throughout Helena, so it doesn't have to be an issue with building permits anymore, right?
So, no, if the sidewalk summit, but there's a lot of details to work out with how we get those installed. I don't foresee that we would, if somebody's building on a vacant lot, forego their requirement to put in sidewalks at that time when they're building. to some time, 20 years in the future. I think that if you're gonna be building or if you're doing something, it's still gonna be required to have sidewalks. Just because if we do that, then, sidewalks will be deferred for, until it comes up on the CIP, and I don't think that's the intent.
Any other questions?
Um,
Oh, on policy, so we got our mailer on the budget, so I assume you're working with Manager Burton on budget. Do you know, is there a date when, because typically there's been every department's had an admin meeting date, do you know when that is going to be?
I can double check when it comes off my report on the budget line to see if they have that scheduled.
Okay. Is there anything? Is there anything that would be helpful to the commission to have our input in the budget now that you would like some input on?
Well, like I said, I've always said the earlier the better, because if it's a project that needs to be vetted and that's going to take time, then that's time in that budget process. And if something comes in June 1st and we're passing preliminary budget on June 30th, then it's a little difficult to have those vetting and then bring back to the commission city findings for them to decide upon.
Yeah.
So,
And we gave our budget
say-
recommendations in January.
Yeah, existing. Is there anything else we need to do for our existing one in that process, or are they sort of set to be addressed?
I don't think so, but
Okay,
I can double check
that'd be
with the
great.
manager. Like I said, the earlier the better, because it gives us a chance to work with the commission and their priorities.
Yeah, I guess I would just say if there's anything that comes up in the next month at our next meeting, if you could just let us know
Yep.
so we can make sure we address that before it's too late.
One that I didn't put on that is a policy thing is the walk audits. That issue has come up where MTAC has done walk audits and you present your findings and then they go to the commission and so what we have talked with the county, Sarah and Joel on that is to try to work with not only the county, but MTAC to get the process more integrated with the city so that when a walk audit is proposed, it's on a standing issue that the city may have, or if the MTAC has gotten comments, that they share those with us so that we can kind of prioritize these so that a walk audit isn't being done on an intersection that might be in the CIP 5 years from now. To try to do these walk audits so that they're falling more in line with current projects or current CIPs, so that a good example right now is, as Greg's aware of, 6th. We're doing our mill and overlay from Beatty to Montana, and we're leaving out Davis and 6th because there's some challenges there with the sidewalk and with some curbing and everything. So that one, working with MTAC would be in a process that we could, get the comments and then kind of a standard staff report from the county that's reviewed and accepted by the city, and then that way when the walk audit gets presented, it's basically it's been through the process. So I could see like 6th and Davis being a good one to do, because that one is a need to better understand what facilities need to be there. The pork chop that is on the south side there on Davis doesn't need to be bigger, doesn't need to just go away. Do we do bulb outs there instead of having the pork chop? So we narrow the the crossing, talk about those ideas and then move forward. In a kind of a collaborative effort instead of it kind of going through this long process.
I definitely would appreciate that, and so we can have more integration and alignment. So we're provided. We're at the visionary stage of a project rather than a reactionary stage.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So we're still working out the details with Sarah and then Joel. I mean, we had an initial meeting to discuss, what we could possibly do. And, I threw out kind of what I just told you, and they thought it was good. We just have to make it official, kind of put some words to paper and get the policy in place so that there is a procedure for picking and doing the block audits. That not only helps the city and MTAC to meet your resolution, but it also helps the county with their limited resources so that we're getting the best bang for our buck. Bad analogy maybe, but being in more alignment so that we can sit there and say, okay, 6th and Davis is in next year's CIP to get rebuilt. Here's the reasons why, and this is what we're proposing. It may have to go to full design, it may not. Like Davis, I think Davis, some common sense approach there is all we really need. I've already discussed with you all about moving the curb lines out to narrowing the road to stop kind of taking the corners wide, introduce and squeezing the road to introduce some traffic calming through there in preparation for the stop sign up at Rodney. Some of the aspects there are, where are the pedestrian crossings better to be or not to be, type thing. So
that's very encouraging. And I will, Jake and Garcia, they've got the when Rachel, previous city manager, they developed a communications policy, and that's a lot of it's in there already about the level of public engagement, and then the check mark is reaching out to the advisory boards.
So just on timeline, we kind of hope maybe by next meeting we have the internal discussions formalized and look to.
We'll definitely have something roughed out,
Cool.
if not, close to completion for at least for a review.
Awesome, thank you.
MDT projects, 11th and Prospect. So they contacted me on that and asked if we were doing any projects along those two corridors, and I said no, not anything that's scheduled. But that project is they're doing the survey, as we all saw last summer, and they're going to be looking at opportunities for improved pedestrian connectivity. Whether that's at Sanders and Prospect. I did ask, are we looking at signals, putting back a signal, or, and then they're not to that level yet. So, but that's one to keep your eye out if you see any announcements for public meeting or public comment.
Yeah, and the MDT projects take forever.
It might be next year when it gets released for bid.
And what I'm getting at is it likely is the LRTP is actually a good way to provide potential input on Prospect and 11th. I will say, surprisingly, and I'm encouraged that the old guard of traffic engineering is actually rapidly changing at MDT. These other communities are actually going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, and MDT is on board with it. So removing a lane off of Prospect Avenue may not be out of the question.
So that was one of my concerns that I brought up, is we have 2 lanes on on 11th that they have a traditional RFB at. 3 lanes on Prospect. And they, like I said, they weren't at that level yet, so. Any other questions on that one? 6th Ward ADA. So that was the design build project last summer. We reapproached it because of how we had to bid it, and worked with MDT to hopefully make it a little bit more significant of a project. So currently we're going through an environmental for the basically categorical exclusion for the entire 6th Ward area. So we know that we won't get everything done with this TA grant, but with having that environmental document for basically south of the tracks to Prospect, and then from Montana to the interstate, that will have that entire area of existing facilities already in an environmental, so that puts us in a better position to go after other grants, to say that we have this documentation done. I don't want to say it's kind of an exercise, but this project is basically replacing old ramps or ramps that were sidewalk intersections that didn't have ramps with ADA compliant. So environmental stuff was nil, nothing, because it's already in the built environment. We're not changing anything but some minor concrete work. Just so
With the EA, is there gonna be a public meeting, public outreach on that?
So they went through the process, and they're submitting the documentation for the first review from MDT to see what MDT has to say. I have a hard time with it because it's replacing basically concrete with concrete, but it's a federally funded program, so it has to go through the federal requirements.
So, should I ask MDT if they're, are they the one that managing the environmental process? Then?
No, we have the documents that are being put together for us. Like I said, it's a categorical exclusion, and they're preliminary. So we're giving them the MDT for their review to see if they have questions on how we approached the project. But the way that all the back end, once we get this approved, will be, we'll take the total of the grant minus any of the costs that have already been used by it. We'll take some money off the top so that we can have money for some contingencies. But basically it will go out and say the city has X amount of dollars. Who can build the most ramps for those dollars to make it a little bit more competitive. So we're hoping to maximize those dollars this way and getting more facilities in than the other design build process.
So typically with an environmental process, there is a public engagement. So I guess
Are you saying because of Cat X, it's not gonna, there's no process because the entire project's Cat X? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
And that's what we'll get comments back from MDT if we need to
Okay.
go through the public portion of it.
Got it. Thank you.
Not on there, but Lola Shepherd, they are still working with the adjacent property owners that are being impacted. Again, I raised my concerns about, they have sidewalks around the roundabout, they have sidewalks by the signal, but to each they do not connect. So we're still working with MDT. They have their position, we have ours, so we'll see how that works in the end.
we have elected officials and we have a complete street policy.
Yeah, that's true. So, like I said, we're continuing the conversation. So,
Okay, well, if you want us to weigh in.
I know, Greg, you've already submitted comments.
But if you, as MTAC, to weigh
So
in.
I can't direct you to weigh in. But if you feel strongly about the project, it might be something to send an email to the commission and just say what your position is on the project and see where that goes.
Yeah, has there been any updates? I haven't looked at NBT's website. Have they updated anything? On that?
I didn't look either. I know that I doubt it because they're still working with the landowners, and we had asked if they could either shrink the roundabout a little bit or push it a little bit farther north to lessen the impacts. They were going to look into if they could do either.
Yeah. And this could likely be a LRTP issue too. I mean, I'd like to see the safe plan is they have a maximum speed limit in the city of Bozeman of 35 miles an hour, which I would like to see on Highway 12.
So something that, if you indulge me one more time, Greg, something that came up after the agenda was posted is, as you all know, we put in for a Safe Streets for All grant for Custer, and were rejected because our LRTP is quote unquote out of date. And it was supposed to be updated, but when we started down the MPO road, they said we can't update it until we become an MPO, because otherwise any work that was done prior to that doesn't count. Paraphrasing, but that's kind of what it was. But we have reached out, and it does appear that we can do a Safe Streets for All planning grant for the LRTP. And if we were successful in getting that, we're still looking at the requirements to see if it fits in there, but kind of got an initial nod from MDT that it does. So if we get that, then that would open up other dollars that were planned for in the MPO for the planning money that were, basically slotted for the LRTP. So we would be able to start on some of these other plans a bit earlier than anticipated because of the savings.
So is that a grant from the state?
So the initial review is done by the state, and then they give recommendations to the FHWA for the administration of that. So that's my report.
One question for you on the RFBs with on Warren and 11th. Can we get a pedestrian phase on the Rodney Street signal?
We can look. I know that cabinet wasn't fully upgraded, so we'll just have to see. And again, that piece fell under maintenance. If we change signal timing or operations, we may have to just go through MDT review for that, but we'll double check.
Or just do it because it's a safe route to school. But yeah, if you could follow up on that. Thanks, Dave. Okay, any other questions? Excuse me, for Dave?
Nope.
Any public comment for Mr. Coffey? Seeing none, we'll move on. The county health report. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Hey everyone, it's good to see everyone. Thank you for letting me join virtually today. So on the agenda, we had the walk audit report from 11th Avenue. Just want to make sure you guys haven't talked about it because I missed the last 2 meetings.
We have not talked about it.
Okay, perfect. So I will share some of the key points from that. So that happened on December 1st. So we're a few months behind. So thanks again for your flexibility there. So what we did is it was around 11th Avenue. And so we looked at what was redone recently, as well as we looked at some potential changes as well. Some of the big summary comments at the end were there's some sidewalks that I think were on the city's radar, but just improving those last bits that haven't been replaced yet. Adding in some parking or a bike lane on one side of 11th, bulb out, slow down traffic, the pedestrian activated light that I think you just mentioned, Greg. And then using the complete streets policy when looking at redesign. So those were the big summary comments, but hopefully you all have access to the report. And if there's any changes by the report you want to make, let me know. Any questions on that walk audit? I know that's pretty brief.
No, I think, you know, the walk audit is kind of good to see things. I appreciate that we can be more aligned with city when we start projects. There wasn't any city staff at that walk audit, you know, and it's just a much more easier conversation to have before any work is done. So, you know, I think there's some things that can be done, but nobody likes to work backwards. And, you know, those can be LRTP issues. You know, the small things that are tangible is obviously the RFPs we've been talking about,
Yes.
and even just, you know, pedestrian signal, you know, a pedestrian phase at Rodney, you know, it just, you know, with an improved road, the appearances at Rodney just, it seems like a bigger intersection than what it was prior.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the changes because I think walk audits have such an important role in getting, you know, community input, getting our disability inclusive input, really being able to look and be in an area. So I'm excited for the changes that are going to happen because I think that we could all be in alignment and hopefully make changes that, again, and earlier in the system is how it should be. So that's exciting. I've noticed Joel, so those who don't know Joel Peden, he was on a few of our walk audits. He does work at the county now. We were able to snack him up for one of our positions. And so he was noticing that on Saddle, there's one of the speed limit signs and our speed limit monitors now. And that was a direct result of one of our walk audits. So there are definitely wins that are happening, but it's exciting to have it earlier in the process. And that's really my update. I'll say that we're still trying to figure out kind of staffing of this committee from the county's perspective. So whether it's me or whether it's Joel or whether it's my replacement from my past position, we're just kind of looking at what that looks like right now as we transition into this next step. So I haven't been as involved, but I hope that we continue that. So any questions for me, I'm happy to answer, but I don't have a whole lot of updates today.
Okay. I think on the list is still a walk audit behind Helena Middle School. I think that would be helpful. You know, we do have school zone signs around there, but that is, the cluster is incredible what that looks like. So I think that would be not one. You know, excited to see what, you know, the new policy is for walk audits. I'd like to see one done on 6. You know, as soon as we get the policy put together, that's why I've got down on my further down on the agenda on 6th Avenue. You know, before we do any mill and fill there, so you know, public can weigh in on those processes. So, okay, any other questions for Sarah?
Nope. Thanks, Sarah.
Oh, Sarah, the other thing, I was talking to a friend. There is a a visually impaired group chapter in town. I was speaking with an acquaintance that would be a great contact, and I'll follow up on this. It was through George McCauley. He knew the person. I can't remember their name, but you know, it's something that, you know, these walk audits, they're so amazing because, you know, selfishly, I'm an able-bodied person and I'm almost oblivious to what other people have to do with, you know, visibility for people, you know, and using their dog. And if there's obstructions, you know, the dog doesn't know what to do. So it's incredibly enlightening to go on these walk audits. So. Okay.
Yeah, do you have a connection to that group? That's amazing. If not, I think I have 2 contacts who might. So the more people we can have with different, you know, different ranges of abilities, I think that would be very beneficial to these walk audits. So that'd be great. Thank you, Greg.
Any other questions for Sarah? Okay, thank you. Moving on, report from the Helena Police Department. Lieutenant Jason Zander, the floor is yours.
How's it going, everybody? Nothing major to report. I'll just give you a quick rundown of some of the accidents and traffic from the last month. Over the last month, we had about 136 non-injury crashes. Of those, 95 got a police report. So around 40 of them were probably private property crashes. We had 12 injury crashes, and none of those were pedestrian related. So no pedestrian crashes over the last month that I can locate. We had somewhere around 470 traffic related incidents. Now that can be traffic stops, it can be traffic complaints, anything traffic. And it looks like we made around 7 traffic stops around Jefferson School. And that's about all I have for you.
Great. I find these traffic reports very helpful. I noticed people are the boulevard on.
Hey, Greg, I don't know if something just happened, but at least on my end, we can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, I lost you too. I lost you too.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The other thing I had on the agenda was I've noticed people have been parking in the boulevard along 11th west of Montana. And we talked about in the past, about doing citations for that, like preferably as a neighbor thing, not to provide citations, but the parking lane is a complete street feature. So if you could monitor that, and what I'd ask, is, if there's any type of, it's not really a police enforcement issue. It's really a infrastructure issue if it's systemic, not circumstantial. So, really that's an infrastructure solution. So, transportation versus department, whatever service is needed there to address that.
So are you just talking about
You got muffled again there, Greg. I'm not sure what happened. It seems like once Dave started moving something, all of a sudden it lost audio again.
Can you hear us now?
There you are. Got you now. Yeah, I can certainly let the guys know on that. What I would encourage is if anybody observes some of those parking violations, just call in the dispatch and we can get somebody over there to handle it. I do know it's a regular problem there. And quite frankly, the guys are probably just accustomed to people parking on the boulevard there. So if you do observe something, give us a call and we'll get somebody sent down there to handle it.
If you observe it.
If you guys are talking, I lost you again.
Jason, I don't know what it would be, but I feel like every time that you're unmuted, for some reason their volume changes. So you want to try that. I don't know why that would be. It shouldn't be that way, but
From me, you think?
yeah, it's just when you're unmuted for some reason, like their volume goes away. And I don't
Okay,
know
let
if
me get
that
that.
might be a correlation.
Yeah, because
Can you
before
hear
I
us
had
now?
the one microphone, or the one speaker off, so it went echo.
Mhm.
And that wasn't having any problems until just during. Jason, can you hear us now?
Yep, as soon as I mute it, I can hear you just fine. So I will mute it in between before I talk.
Okay.
Over.
So 11th is wide enough to have parking where it's allowed. And everybody that drives 11th knows that very little, if any, parking happens on the south side of the street. And there's limited parking on the north side of the street. I mean, limited active parking. There's a couple residents that park on 11th, but for the most part, there's a parking lane that doesn't get used. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why it's very helpful to have a walk audit and MTAC recommendations before 6, because, we talked about bulb outs on, certain intersections there, and that, gives the impression of protection on those parking lanes. So maybe that would mitigate it. I don't know.
Well, my bigger point on 11th is there's not a lot of parking actually happening on 11th. If we were to look at that, what potentially could we redesign that corridor to look like to, I guess, have better use of that area, because that parking lane, even though there's a parking lane that doesn't get used, it's just more asphalt to maintain. And if it was maybe used for a different purpose or whatever, then maybe it would be used a little bit more than it is now, with it being designated as parking. So
Yeah, and I'm not opposed. I guess I'm not. I don't know if I'd necessarily support removing parking, because that's what actually gets people to slow down. But if bulb outs are in there, the residents might be more comfortable parking there. If there's a feeling that there's more protection.
So the other thing that we're going to try to do when we chip seal that this year is do edge lines, fog lines, because right now, if you watch during the winter time, park driving lanes shy to either closer to the parking lane or closer to the center line, and hopefully by striping a fog line in there that designates the lane, that might get drivers to actually drive in the travel lane and leave the parking lanes as parking and not half travel, half. So we're going to see how that works. Striping that fog lane, now that we have a paint truck, we can do that a lot easier.
Will it be striped as 2 10-foot lanes?
And better use would be like what, a bike lane or something?
That would have to be looked at.
That's an LRTP issue, But I think, I know you mentioned striping, that's thought too, is, you could shift the 2 10-foot lanes, I don't know what the width. So there is parking on the south side. But yeah,
It doesn't look like it, but nobody ever, I mean, rarely do you see somebody park there, and it's typically either the UPS guy, or I've seen passenger cars parked there, but typically on the way back, they're gone. It's not a long-term parking thing that I've seen.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd like to see if it is wide enough, 2 10-foot lanes in the middle, in the fog lines, lane lines, and then hopefully there's 6 feet on each side.
We're going to try to center as best we can. With older infrastructure, sometimes it's it's a game.
Yeah.
Isn't it all MDT? So,
Well, we have the maintenance.
so they'll let you stripe it, but not however you want.
We will strike it. That's me.
It's a issue. It's a safety thing that we consider because people aren't staying in the travel lanes.
Yeah.
And you know, if people start staying in the travel lanes, then we might see more people parking on one, which would then decrease the speed. But as it's right now, the parking use is very minimal.
Yeah, and like Lambourne. The bike lane and the parking lane is striped to 6 feet, but the lane itself is like 15 feet. You know, and I would prefer to see 2 10-foot lanes and then make the parking lane or make the bike lane bigger, you know, have it minimized to 2 10-foot lanes and the rest can be wider, you know, don't widen the traffic lanes.
So our maintenance, Luke, is to clarify between Montana and basically cruise. From Montana eastward is all MDT.
Right, yeah, okay.
But that corridor, as you guys know, there's the bike lane on the one side, which is super wide. And I've witnessed numerous times people using that as a third lane to either make a left or try to get by traffic. So it's just too wide as a bike lane without some separation, I guess. And paint is in the separator.
Yeah, and I rode my bike on it, and it's uncomfortable. So nobody rides a bike on it. Okay, we'll move on. The MPO implementation. So the position was advertised. Did you receive any applicants?
We received 6 applicants, and they're being scored actually tomorrow afternoon.
Can MTAC be involved on the selection committee?
We asked, and since it's a personnel issue, it was going to stay within staff.
Okay, do
Sorry, Greg,
you,
I had a thought that I had to put in the task list before I finished.
let's see, so when, I guess, process with the applicants, do you know when there would be, you know, a selection committee, when there would be hiring or offer?
So depending on the outcome of tomorrow, and you know, ranking the candidates, whether there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are going to get interviews, that'll just determine on the interview schedule. We did try to set some time aside, but it's with all the between MDT, the county, and the city, it's fairly difficult to get those in those times, but we do have some time aside to conduct interviews and then have the selection committee have a meeting to discuss next steps. So there may be 1 interview, it may be 2 interviews. Again, we just don't know at this point.
Who is on the selection committee?
The public works director for the county engineer, myself, the transportation engineer for the city, Jeff Streeter for MDT. And there's some alternates, but those are the main ones that calendars are open.
Okay, what about like Kevin Orr from East Helena?
We extended the invitation. They had some conflicts. So
Okay. Okay. The other item I had on here, you know, once we have the MPO planner, you know, there's all these committees, but you know, my position is MTAC should continue with the MPO. There's no reason why it can't. You know, the Non-Motorized Travel Advisory Council. You still have the other committees. And I asked Danae about it, and she didn't have any information on whether MTAC is going to continue or not. And with, you know, us being down to 4 members, I know Ann Houserath has applied. Tom, have you?
Officially.
Yep. So, you know, we have 3 vacancies right now. You know, my thought is we just do an action item and, you know, to let the commission know that we want MTAC to continue with the MPO. And then the other action item is to immediately appoint new members. So you know, and the reason it's just action item is that it formalizes our position to get it in front of the commission.
So on that, because the MPO is the 3 entities, there may be opportunity to you know, expand MTAC so that it has membership from all 3 if it's going to represent the MPO, because that's the driving force between the TAC and the PCC, is that there's membership from all the different entities represented. The one thing that I did, I don't know if you remember, but I did put on as a voting member on the technical advisory committee a non-motorized member at large. So not necessarily from MTAC, but a non-motorized member at large. So it could be somebody from the city, county, or city of East Helena.
You guys have any?
Well, I'm curious, I guess, how that process would look if, as assume you have some positions dedicated for each entity, and they could each appoint some ones. I guess I'm curious.
So other communities have subcommittees from like the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee, and they kind of they are sometimes similar to kind of a quasi commission thing where they get a subcommittee together that may be composed of TAC members or outside folks, and their whole you know, might be non-motorized, or it might be freight, or it might be whatever. You know, it's just on the level of input that I think that the TAC and the PCC think they need. So I think really, you know, you guys can think about however you think it looks, but or how you want it to stay the same or whatever. But once those 2 committees are formed and they start having their initial conversations, and you know, public's obviously always invited, and having that input, then I think they'll evolve on how they want to what they want, how they want to look, how it looks, you know. And then again, once the MPO manager is hired, you know, that will be the direct staff position, report to those 2 committees. So not to say that nothing's going to be being done, but I think that there's going to be larger conversations once those 2 committees are actually formed and begin meeting. We haven't formalized the schedule for the initial meetings, but you know, there's been proposals of, you know, monthly if we can make it for at least the TAC for the first few months, so that everything can get up and running and get everybody up to speed, because you know, there's meetings for kind of MPO 101, so everybody knows how the MPO works and what's required and blah 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 to bring everybody up to speed. So
yeah, and I guess I'm fine having MTAC be a subcommittee, but we're still an advisory board to the city commission, which is the elected body. I guess I have some hesitation on, you know, 1 member, you know, on the TAC. You know, I think you if we get rid of MTAC, we're losing this voice,
Well, originally there was no voice on the TAC. And so I purposely stepped and have held firm on it that there was a non-motorized voice.
Yeah.
There's only so many members on the TAC, so, or voting members. There's a lot of there's a lot of movement for room for non-voting, but there's only so many voting members.
Sure.
So, I wouldn't minimize the fact that you only have one seat, because you have that one seat, then you're a member of, as it stands now, that non-motorized at large is a member and a voting member to express those opinions.
So then how does that get picked? Does all the different entities have to agree on that person, or?
That conversation of the at-large members on how they, do they apply to the TAC? Do they apply to the, we haven't had that discussion, so I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, and that's where I'm comfortable letting the commissioners know as a group our position. I'd like to see MTAC continue with the MPO. How, I don't know, but and don't get me wrong, it's not to minimize, absolutely appreciate that we at least have one voice on the TAC, but really from a pedestrian standpoint, non-motorized, the city of Helena has the most needs.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. I would like to see this voice continue. At the same time, if there's you can continue, but you're going to be in an echo chamber. We're going to point the attention towards this other process, and so I'm just curious what the city's perspective is on.
So the MPO process is separate from the city, county, and East Helena process. So it generally looks at federal aid, federal routes, projects. Day-to-day operations of East Helena County and the city are not dictated by the MPO.
So
there's no,
the redundancy
MTAC
there
should.
Yeah, the redundancy there isn't really
exactly
a problem.
Because they're separate. They're auxiliary, but they're not. We're not doubling up.
Right.
So I would like to, as we're moving towards getting things established with the MPO, be aligned and be ahead of it. And not say, why did you get rid of MTAC in the future? It's just, as a group, let the commissioners know that we want MTAC to continue, and then we need new members. So Lucas, Joel, do you guys have any thoughts?
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page. I was kind of thinking maybe it would make sense to ask to have a few minutes at the admin meeting to just point out that we don't have members, and if one more person resigns, we won't be able to meet.
And that's, I did ask Danae about getting on the schedule, and I haven't heard back from her. I know it's budget season right now, and what I'm afraid of is that by the time we get scheduled on an admin meeting, it could be September. The MPO could be formed by then, and
just maybe a little bit of tangent. Did you ask Danae about Pan, or is that about the timeline there?
No. So I asked, if there's been any discussion about MTAC continuing and the appointment of Ann, and the response back, with the formation of the MPO, it's undetermined.
Okay.
So that's why it's like,
there you go.
That's why we did.
Yeah.
We've been in flux for, I think she applied last September, August, so.
Well, the reality is, some of us are gonna term out, I don't know, fairly soon, and then if it's not a reappointment, then it will go away functionally.
Essentially, just attrition. It'll
die slow death, which is
when the term is up.
Next year. So,
and mine too, I think.
Believe so.
Yeah, it's
in 1 year from
3 years. Term is 3 years. You can do 2 3-year terms. Typically, you're renewed automatically unless you don't want to.
Fair point.
So,
Sorry.
okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and just make the motion. It is 6:27, 6:26. Motion to advise the commission to continue MTAC with the MPO formation.
I'll second.
Well, I guess I'm confused, I guess, by the motion. So. I wonder if it makes sense to. Say that. Helena's MTAC should continue. Period. Yes. Or just, just advise the commission that, our rules are, that there's 7 seats, our rules require 4 people, and we only have 4 people. And so point is to continue.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure what that means in terms with the MPO. I don't know that we need to stick our nose into the question of how that looks, or maybe that's a separate discussion of like how does MTAC work with the MPO? But maybe just MTAC with the city should continue as is for now.
I'd like to see it continue with the MPO. That's what
I think my
and then I was going to follow up with a second motion to immediately appoint people. So I was going to do that as a second motion.
I guess on this motion, since it's been second, we're discussing. I mean, I guess what David said kind of clarified it in my head, which is it's not a redundant. It wouldn't be redundant. It could be parallel. So for the charter, for the purpose we exist now, we don't have to be subsumed or just to sort of go away. So if Greg's asked the question of the city and that we haven't gotten a clear answer, at least we're saying we'd like to make it clear what our position is, that we're at minimum capacity to even exist, and we'd like to be here. So
I don't want the MPO a reason to get rid of.
Yeah, we don't have, and I don't want us to say to David that we have that as a belief that that's going to happen. But Lucas, to your point, the reality of this group is Joel moves out of town, I move out of town, whatever. That's it. So that's.
Do you want to amend?
Well, I guess I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they'll take or how I understand what you mean by MTAC to continue with the MPO.
Maybe I can clarify something. So the PCC is the policy coordinating committee. And so they have a representative from the mayor of Eastham, the mayor of Helena, the chairperson of the Lewis and Clark County Commissioners, all sit on there. So they would direct policy of, moving forward, whatever a policy would be that they feel need to be. And the TAC would, support that or give them information. So, if one entity feels strongly about, whatever, and that can be brought up into the PCC, and would have a discussion at the PCC. So they're separate, but they're not. I mean, there's going to be some this policy discussion from a local level and how that integrates into the MPO. But typically, they're designed for to manage and administer federal aid, like the urban routes, 11th, and Neil, Bent, those urban routes that technically fall under MPT stuff. So it's more federal, but there's still policy that can come out of the MPO that's farther reaching, I guess, than just for a long while.
Lucas, does your sort of heartburn come from it doesn't seem necessary? We're just kind of irritating the commission by doing it? Is it, or, agitating, we don't need to agitate, essentially, is that your perspective?
Well, I guess I'm not sure that they understand. Or that I quite understand what we're asking them to do. Which is, well, I guess despite the fact that we're having this MPO, you should continue to have MTech in the city of Helena.
Yeah.
And so why do you have to mention the MPO at all? Just maybe have one motion that just says, MTech has been in operation since 1996 or whatever, and there's still something to contribute, and we should continue to appoint members to it. I don't know.
Yeah, Craig, thoughts on that?
I guess I can see kind of where you're coming from. What I've gotten, it seems like, it seems like there's hesitation, but I haven't gotten any direct feedback on how the MPO and
So I guess my concern is that what the MPO does with some sort of non-motorized subcommittee or something that they have. I don't know. Are we trying to comment on that, or is that just trying to say, hey, MTech should continue in Helena? And so that's I just think whatever we're asking for, it should be clear, and I don't know that we should at this point be asking for, or maybe we should be thinking about, okay, well, what does it look like with the MPO? Because I guess that's my concern about saying, hey, well, with the MPO, that to me sounds like we're going to be with them, under them, or something. If that's not what you're saying, then you're saying MTech should be continued despite the MPO, and we should just continue.
I think we could maybe kind of kill two birds with one stone and say something to the effect of as NIMTech is vital to the functioning of transportation or the continuance of non-motorized transportation in Helena, we make a motion to advise the commission to, confirm that applicants, so we can continue to do XYZ work, because then that indicates to them that we would like to keep working. And then that also, doubles as a, please confirm our applicants so we can have more people.
Yeah, and that's, that was going to be the second point of this. I guess I'm not too worried about agitating the commission, because most commissioners say they want to hear from the public, and we are an advisory board, and they can choose whether they get agitated or not. Or maybe we just, go to the second part of my second motion and just say to immediately appoint.
Yeah,
persons. Because I'm getting hesitation, and I guess I'm speculating that there has been some reservation. Why would you not? Because there hasn't been any appointment, and I'm not getting any feedback. So it's like, is there thoughts of getting rid of MTAC? But that's a jump on my end. So why don't we do that? I'll rescind my motion, and I'll just make another motion here. 636, motion to the commission to immediate, with their, I'll just say, motion to advise the commission to immediately appoint additional MTAC members.
Could I propose a friendly amendment?
Yes, please.
Would you add on that immediately appoint MTech individuals who have applied to
Yes.
I'll second that.
Can I do a friendly amendment?
Okay,
To advise the commission that we have only 4 members and require 4 members for a quorum. And as we said, immediately appoint members.
Maybe as like a preparatory, like because or as
Yeah,
that definitely has 4 members. We advise the commission to immediately appoint applicants individuals who have applied. Something like that, Lucas, is that what you're gonna
yeah, or 2, I guess.
make a decision? You don't have to appoint them, but you
Yeah.
need to know where they sit with them. It's like I'm trying to transcribe.
well, I've got my notes here and I
Yeah.
think I've got it. No, these are actually good clarifications here. So, so I'm gonna just 637, scratch that. So motion by Greg to immediate appoint applicants to MTAC since we currently only have 4 members.
Works for me. Sorry, did you want to say?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second by Joel.
Public comment.
Yep. On the other side.
Yeah, so I gotta get my notes down. Otherwise, so actually, well, I guess since we have a motion and it's seconded, but I'm gonna open it up to public comment. See if you guys have any comments or encourage applications.
So you just need an application by the date of that administrative meeting?
No, you can apply whenever, right now. We have one applicant that is currently in flux right now, that the commission just has not appointed her. So what I encourage you to do is just apply and you'll be on the essentially on the waiting list. But we're asking that they appoint you immediately. Okay, so we got a motion seconded by Joel. I will call a vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Seeing none, all in favor. And I'll keep following up with Danae, and if there's any indication that we want to remain, and I think we can with the NPO. So, okay, great.
Can I ask one clarifying question? I know when we got the new bylaws or whatever that was that we approved, one of the things that we had talked about is the wording of a quorum is half the total allocated number of members. Were we actually planning on addressing that at some point to change that, in the attempt to change that to the half the total number of current members, not potential members or openings? Or is that something that we just decided not to go back to?
We had talked about making some proposed amendments. But we never really put that on the agenda to do those amendments to try to do that.
Yeah, for next month.
Yeah, and we'll have to go back and reread it.
I don't know if we should talk about it if it's not on our agenda now.
No, and we're running late. I want to hit on some other things too, but yeah, let's add it to the next agenda. And most of the time it ends up being on point because we're all in favor. It's just, we just need everybody to be here. So, yeah.
I have to help, but I intend to apply. So
Great. Thanks.
fire concert.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for coming.
Moving on here, I'm going to skip MTAC recommendations for the LRT RFQ. want to keep that on there so I don't forget about it, but that's something when we do get an MPO planner to talk about. The other one I have on here, so the city applied for a RAISE grant. And this is a road that goes from the South Hills interchange over towards its Crossroads Parkway, over the light before you get to East Helena. You know, I strongly support the city applying and thinking big, you know, for a RAISE grant. I don't agree with the project. You know, RAISE, it's an acronym for Rebuilding America's Infrastructure for Sustainability and Equity. I don't see building a brand new 5-lane road as rebuilding or sustainable or providing equity. So, you know, there wasn't any public involvement, visioning process, you know, so just, you know, I don't think this was the right project. You know, we've got Cruz Avenue, we've got Neil Custer Avenue, there's sidewalk all throughout town that to me are much higher priorities than building a road across, you know, brand new, you know, property for people that can afford cars and houses.
So tell me again where it would be.
It would be, let's see here. Can you,
to cut across from the South Hills to the north, crossroads east there.
So from here over to here.
So existing or non-existing, a new road?
And included in that raised grant, there's money for, this is a design, not a construction application. There's money in that design for, there's non-motorized facilities over there, and included in that would be another pedestrian underpass under the interstate so that it could tie directly into the South Hills trail system instead of having to go all the way down Broadway.
So was this grant awarded or just applied for? Where is the Habitat for Humanity development in relation to that?
that's in East Helena.
Yeah,
So that's farther over.
Yeah.
but this would tie in. There's some other development that would tie some of this area over in East Helena and Jefferson County. So
I mean, you know, the road makes sense. I think there was other, to me, as a member of the city of Helena, I would have other priorities.
Maybe just a question for David. I don't mean speak to that about why this project, or if there were other projects in consideration that this one sort of was the focus of. Was it just a better fit for this grant in the city's eyes, or?
in the city's eyes, this fit a lot of the things that are lacking right now. This opens up a lot of developable property for housing, and with the housing shortage that we have, there's the non-motorized to connect the non-motorized facilities basically east to west. You know, there are vehicle advantages as well to and then there's just, you know, infill into the city and provide more, you know, some opportunities. So
I mean, the way other communities have used this grant, it's actually to do road diets. I mean, that's the purpose of the grant, you know. That's why I'm against widening Benton Avenue, is that this is what the grant is for, is to take a 3-lane road and put it back to a 2-lane road, you know, is to remove those barriers. So, I mean, you know, I don't want to dwell on it, but I do thought it was worth verbalizing from MTAC, is that make people aware of it, because it came up quick. And you know, this is the benefit of having an MPO in the future, is that these decisions aren't going to be, I don't know how it was arrived at, but my thoughts is, you know, this will not be a priority.
One more question for David. If you don't mind, David, has the city has used one of these grants before or no? This is the first time?
no, this is the first. race grant that we've applied for. There was talk in years past of grade separation at Montana, Custer, the corridor of Montana Avenue itself to basically bring in those complete street features along there, sidewalks, get some drainage features instead of having some of the ditches and spots. So there's been projects contemplated,
Yeah.
just not all the way through now.
And you said this is for design, not construction.
Yes.
And then
the RAISE program is fairly new. It was part of Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Um,
okay.
so, Missoula got gosh, it was like a $19 million grant on Brook Street.
Well, that street needs it. So
yeah.
So
was there, as part of the grant, I guess I feel I need to ask this question: is there an easement through the Padbury Ranch property for that road?
Mm-hmm.
There is an easement.
There will be.
There will be an easement. So I guess the reason I bring this up is we can't do the feasibility study on the Henderson Bridge because we don't have an easement. But here we spent money on a grant application without an easement.
Well, I guess. Okay. Shouldn't even say it.
yeah, I'm just I mean, David, sorry, going back to your questions. With a couple of the other projects that have been long running discussions here, this one just you are kind of addresses because of connectivity to East Helena, and that as an absolute need. I would sort of just
And
the top.
Some of the other needs of the city with housing and
So there's going to be
economic stimulus.
a car dependent suburban subdivision there is the hope.
No, it's not a car dependent. It was very clear that this would meet the complete streets policy, that will have dedicated non-motorized facilities separate from.
But there's nowhere to go because it's sprawl.
Well, there is no connectivity now from East Helena for non-motorized other than the trail, the path that is intermittent. This would connect East Helena to basically the west side by, like I said, there's going to be another design for a pedestrian tunnel underneath I-15 so that pedestrians can be separated and come over to those trail system on the south of the South Helena there, and then all the trail system that goes all the way to.
And I don't think, I think we move on here. I don't think we need to belabor it. I just wanted to bring it up, is that so people are aware of it. Some discussion here. There's a disagreement here, and it would have been nice to vet this disagreement before there was a grant application. But it's water under the bridge at this point. The grant was applied for, so. Do you know when the notification of potential grant awards?
It's in June. I don't remember the exact date, but I know that we'll miss the next application deadline, if it were to go to implementation, because the time frame between award and release of the next NOFO and design would not coincide. So there'll be a lag.
One more, I promise. Last question. What was the size of the application? Do you have a grant? How much money are you trying to get for the design?
1.3 million.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on. The fairgrounds project. So there is a design for, there's a project to design a roundabout at the fairgrounds, which I support. As long as there's pedestrian connectivity through it. But it's only for the design. And of course the design, if we're going to go through an 80% design, I want to see it implemented if we're going to go through that effort. So I don't know if we need it now or a motion. We sent our recommendations to the city commission for budget, but keep in mind, or Dave, if you want to put it in the CIP, I think we should put this in the CIP. That if we're going to go through the effort of a design, we need to bring this project across the finish line too, and do it completely separate from whatever is going to happen on Custer Avenue, because that's decades, potentially decades away.
That's the intent.
Yeah.
So to get because it's not only just to build the roundabout, there's flow issues during large events, not just the fair, but Ryan Fields has, numerous events that, traffic flow comes to a screeching halt, and a roundabout will manage that flow a lot better than a bunch of stop signs with people waving people through and, stop and go type thing. It will help with the fairgrounds as well. There's potential for a slip lane that would be, open in the
Preferably not.
well, it's a slip lane to allow for the flow to move into the fairgrounds, but still allow the the inside flow, and
But it makes the crossing distance longer.
yeah, but the other side is shorter. So we have to design for all modes.
Yeah, and then there will be a public. This is a large design. There'll be a public comment period. So and then the other part of the project is paving at the fairgrounds. My position, that city project, there should be a building permit with that project and a zoning review, because it would require a pedestrian path, from the right of way to the building. And then you introduce new parking lots need to have trees. You have to have a parking spot within 35 feet of a tree trunk. So it forces you to have these islands in there, which from a community standpoint, I seek out those areas when I go visit other communities, because you want to go park in the shade. So there's a benefit to those. So that is our zoning ordinance. So the expectation is that the fairgrounds project will meet the city zoning.
Just a quick question on that for, I guess, Greg or Dave. Timeline on that project, on the fairgrounds project?
It's ARPA dollars. I don't remember what I know the ARPA funds have to be spent by 2026. Okay. I think it's
2020, preferably end of 2025.
Yeah, it's end of 2025, but I think but that's
spent.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the design would be complete by the end of 2025.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, the RFB installations, we already talked about that. Complete Street, we talked about 6th, and I think it'd be valuable to have a walk audit. So we've made our recommendations of what we think, bulb outs, connectivity on Hoback. There is talk about with getting the museum, that's going to be a big draw, and to have 6th as a corridor to get downtown is so I think
on the Montana project.
Yeah,
stay on that, because I think some of the initial comment was for signals, and we requested roundabouts for 6th in Montana and Broadway in Montana. Yeah. So sorry to interrupt.
Well, that's further on. I appreciate that, but Dave, just keep us up to date. But we got to look at these corridors, and 6 ends up being a good corridor. It's actually pretty nice for walkability. And with the state capitol, I still live at that intersection. It seems like every legislative session there was a pedestrian incident at 6th in Montana. Thus the need for a roundabout and a road diet. But as we move on to, I think there's an opportunity to do much more than just a mill and fill on 6th Avenue, especially if we're reducing the scope of the project. There's budget, to implement the complete street policy. The commission actually was working on a strategic plan, on things as well too. So, we'll talk about having a walk audit So the TA project, Helena High, that's the 6th Ward 88 project, I'll reach out, that's why I asked about public comment is, that's, it's fine if we do ADA replacement. There's lots of ADA, curb corners that could be changed with ADA, but I think there's some strategic ones that definitely need more treatment there. And I don't want to just put in and replace an ADA ramp where there should be more treatment, just for the sake of doing a simple project. So, and if we need to do timeout and look for a better project, fine, so. And then 6th Ward projects, that's getting into, well, actually the vanilla bean and stuff, that's going to be part of the 6th Ward area. And then, I still have an update, further down here too, but, moving on, anybody else have any questions on Complete Street or comment? Yeah, we'll move on. Member communication, stop sign is yield signs. I did a little bit of research and didn't see anything new there. I'll just keep that on there. National Avenue Argyle recommendations. So there is a public meeting scheduled for March 21st on the crossings on Montana and on Lindell. So everybody attend that meeting, or if you can't provide your comments, one of my comments is going to be provide connectivity from Centennial Trail to Bozeman Avenue. So this is on our opportunity to, provide the better, provide a way to get to the crossing on Bozeman, Montana, Argyle and Montana. So
it's a nighttime meeting or it's during the day?
David, do you know? I assume it's a evening meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have it on my calendar. But
That's all right. No worries. I'll just curious. I'll find it. Thank you.
Yep. Let's see, long-term goals, MTech vision, you have that on there. I think you can talk about if you guys have broad plans, but that's a good, more of an LRTP issue to look at, and get it, in a plan. So the SAFE program, Vision Zero, I've got this on here, but no action items. I just, I don't want to forget about this stuff, but until we get an MPO planner, it's not worth talking about, some of the details on this stuff. So, other city projects, the school zones. David, has there been any outreach with the school district on anything else?
We haven't had our quarterly meeting yet, but we did go out and we inventoried everything, and we have a meeting set up for internal staff to review what's out there, where it's needed. We have some areas that's, school zone ahead is, in my opinion, too far in advance to get drivers' attention, that by the time they drive the entire city block that they forgot about that sign and might remember when they get to the school zone. But so things like that that will be putting up more signs as we go around. So
okay, no, and I had spoke with Principal Boyle from HMS. They were thrilled that their signs all around there, and they extended the zone further south on Rodney, so it's the full school. So just passing on, it doesn't go unnoticed. People really do appreciate that. So thanks, Dave. Yeah. The pedestrian crossings at Montana and Lindell, we talked about that. Centennial Trail easement, we talked about that. Benton Avenue widening trail, transportation entrance. Is there any plan to schedule to go out to bid for that project, Dave?
They're getting bid documents ready. I don't have a date for bid.
Okay. Lawrence and Last Chance Gulch. They were going to study or feasibility there. Is there update on that, Dave?
Yeah, they came back with some potential recommendations, and we sent it back to them to be definitive, not just give the city a menu of options, but from their professional,
A preferred option.
preferred option.
Cool. Can we weigh it? Would it be helpful for MTAC to weigh in on that prior to any that might be?
I I would have to look at the schedule, but I mean, at the very least, we'll have it at an admin meeting before anything's finalized.
Okay,
So I'll let Greg know when that's gonna be.
Awesome.
And again, with budget season, it's those admin meetings and time is fairly built up already.
Okay.
But the before I forget, May is the month that we don't have an exact date, but May is the month for
the budget.
for
Okay.
streets.
Okay. Meetings of interest announcements. So the sixth ward neighborhood plan update, that's been going on a while, and the planner that's working on that was out on maternity leave, I believe through April. So I'll follow up on that again. The Montana Avenue safety study, I have requested that through RFI process through MDT, kind of like a freedom of information request. I have not heard anything on that, so I will follow up again with Tyrell. I don't know if it's been published or what, but I guess Dave, I guess I trust that you will get a copy of their study. And
So you made a public records request.
What's that?
You made a public records request to MDT on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've made changes on that. We gave MDT our general mailing box. And instead of having to pick and choose, I told them anything happening in Helena, forward to that. And then if it doesn't concern us, they're gonna paint the guardrail blue or whatever, something that doesn't really, and will not review it, but they should be sending everything to us in the future.
Yeah, and I just trust it. As soon as you forward it on to me, and I will distribute it, but I will ask again because it's been silent. So I'll reach out to Tyler. It might be that they're just not ready to release it. So I'll just trust the process at this point until I hear otherwise. The 5-point intersection study, so that was in the paper. I'm dating myself. By Helena IR today. So March 26th, there is a public meeting on that one as well. So, so be prepared to provide comments there. So see what's proposed. Roundabout's a good idea.
Cool.
But I just want to make sure that there's good pedestrian connectivity all around as well too. And maybe we can widen a portion of Neal Avenue with the project, or excuse me, narrow, get rid of the wide portion of Neal Avenue.
Whoa. Yeah. You use the word
I propose narrow and then Greg's wide.
Yeah.
Dave's that?
Just checking to make sure you guys are listening.
Yeah.
The other thing, I did reach out to Danae. They're supposed to be spring and fall for the MSU local government training. I wasn't able to make the one for the fall, so I asked Danae if there's been been one scheduled or not, because I need a refresher as well. So as soon as I hear that, I'll pass it on to folks. But we should be attending one of those a year.
Yep.
So moving on to public comment on any item not on this agenda.
I would just say that I had no idea about the MOS as a public, and someone who listens to commission meetings and pays attention and reads the headlines, at least from the independent record and stuff. Like, I had no idea what that was until I sat down in this room. So that's going to be a surprise for people when it changes. But that's all.
What did you say? The MO?
The MPO.
MPO. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I would encourage you. The MPO. It's not a bad. It's more bureaucracy, but it's not a bad thing. And if you look at what Bozeman and Missoula has done with their MPO, it's fantastic. Go look at their LRTP update. It's incredible, and that's why I got it on here. I want to see our LRTP. I just use the RFQ that Missoula used because it's night and day from a traditional widened street plan, to an actual transportation plan, and the other things I want to see in there is Helena is actually quite similar to Missoula in that Helena grows by 30% every day. But as a city taxpayer, I shouldn't have to pay for big wide streets to serve people that don't live here. So they look at the equity
Yeah.
like that, and that's obviously the raise grant, to build a 5-lane road that
Yeah,
I don't get a lot of value.
that's why I was shocked when you said widen a few minutes ago.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the Missoula LRTP, it's jaw dropping when I read it. It's like, wow, this is, so. Okay. Any other?
Is there any comment?
No, I appreciate you joining us and encourage, if you want to be involved, submit an application to be a board member. Okay. Moving on, our next meeting is going to be April 9th here in this room. And then also keep in mind the public meeting dates, March 21st for the Montana Bozeman crossing and the Lindell Ewing crossing. And then March 26th is the 5-point intersection study public meeting. So please attend those and provide comments. We can talk about it here, but it's much more valuable to provide your comments in that organized venue. So.
Great.
Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Okay.
Hang on. I did get something from Ann. Sorry I just checked my text messages.
oh, is there a comment? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Public.
Oh.
And go ahead if you have comments.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Anyway, this is my 3rd meeting where I have attended listening but not been able to participate. The chat has been disabled. So anyway, I appreciate all that you've said. I'm going to email the city clerk telling her I'm still interested in being on your committee. I would just like to comment on the MPO. In Boise, we had an MPO. There was the policy meeting and the technical policy committee. There still is very much a need in Helena for the MTAC. So that's it. I hope you can figure out the technology. I will be attending, whether I'm on the committee or not, in May next month. I'm a master gardening program, but it would be good to be sure that members of the public can actually Zoom in, because I wasn't able to get on. So thank you very much. That's it.
And were you able to raise your hand though?
Nope. Chat, the hand was disabled and the chat was disabled.
Yeah, because the chat's disabled because we have, for security reasons, we can't just do straight meetings.
No, the hand was also disabled.
Okay, I'll double check that, but
anyway, I appreciate all that you're doing. Yeah, I definitely still want to be a member of your committee, and whether I am or not, I'm going to keep coming.
Okay, and maybe we're there's not a whole lot of people that attend. Dave, I know the attendee versus the panelist. Maybe we just promote everybody to a panelist that's on here. Okay.
Thanks, Ann.
You bet. Thanks.
Thanks, Ann. Okay, we got a motion to adjourn. 7:11.
yeah.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Seeing none, we're adjourned. Great discussion, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Joel,